Okay, so I did my project on how poverty affects teen pregnancy and adolescent girls. So teen pregnancy affects 15 to 19-year-old girls, and usually 1 in 4 girls will become pregnant by age 20, and then 1 in 5 will have a second child in their teen years, which I thought was a huge number. And having a child so young also affects their educational goals, their financial dependence on government, because at this point they're having to depend on things like WIC and food stamps and that kind of stuff to be able to take care of their child. And they're also usually less likely to finish high school. But just because they're teens and they become pregnant, yes, most of them are unplanned, but sometimes that doesn't always mean that they're unwanted. And some of these girls that have become pregnant as teenagers think that having a baby can provide them love, and it might be something that they were lacking maybe at home. And then boys kind of feel like they have a sense of manhood because they just created this child. But later kind of figure out that it really wasn't as easy as they thought. Some risk factors in teen pregnancy are girls that are living in single parent homes, so they're not getting the support from both a mom and a dad, and they're usually already living in poverty, and they're not getting educated from usually their paternal parent, just on safe sex and things like that. They're not having someone talk to them about education at all, or better, making your life better. And a lot of times the mother of that teen that became pregnant was a teen mom herself, and they may have had earlier sexual activity than maybe most girls their age, and then in turns they're using drugs and alcohol and having more sexual activity, and they already have low self-esteem, which causes them to do the drugs and alcohol to feel better about themselves, and then it leads to the sexual activity. And then all of this is happening with no parental supervision around. So these are all factors that are kind of contributing to the girls getting pregnant really young. And these are the girls that are usually in the stage of identity versus role confusion, and they're kind of trying to figure out who they are and what kind of their role is in society. It goes back to the things that we learn about when we're really little, what girls should be like and what boys should be like. Well, all of that kind of builds on when you get into the stage as an adolescent, and this is the time where they're really trying to explore. And at this stage, you know, it's normal for teens to test their limits and see how much they can get away with, what their parents will let them slide on. And that's often where the poor supervision plays into it, because the parent thinks, oh, my child is so good, they would never do that. But in turn, as soon as they leave them without supervision, they are doing that. And they're usually joining certain social groups. At this stage, they're creating cliques, things like that, groups of people they'll hang out with based on what they like. And they're falling in love at this stage, even though they may not really understand what falling in love is. But this is where all of that's happening. And sometimes in this stage, there seems to be a lot more drama with the 15 to 19-year-olds. Everything that they go through in life is a crisis. Whether it's what to wear that day, if they should wear pants, a dress, a skirt, a shirt, certain shirt, whatever the case may be, everything that they're going through is a crisis. If their hair doesn't look right, it's a crisis. They're also forming their own opinions based on the peers that are around them. Again, that's where they're choosing certain groups to be social with, and they're kind of mirroring their activities, and they want to kind of be like the peers around them. So if they get into that wrong crowd, then that kind of helps, kind of pushes them in that wrong direction, kind of leading them down that road of teen pregnancy. And if they're in this stage and they don't explore fully and do some experimenting during this time, it can affect them later in life where they're not having healthy relationships with people. And again, the supervision piece also plays into this, and protecting them from doing these risky behaviors. You know, teenagers this age, they may act like they hate it, but they really do kind of crave some form of supervision from their parents. Even if they give pushback, they still are kind of looking for them rules and that structure in their lives. And also to continue with the identity versus role confusion, and supervision being primarily important because they need to go through this stage of the psychosocial crisis properly to become a successful adult, and to keep from this leading to pregnancy for them, where it can really change their lives. And teens in this stage should have some normal pushback because it's just kind of what they do at this stage. It's where they're forming who they are, and people are telling them to do things they don't really want to do. So some of that is normal, and they're trying different hairstyles, changing their clothes. This is all where they're learning their identity. So some of that is normal. And if they go through the autonomy versus shame and doubt stage, it can kind of help females learn how to be dependent or independent and not need other people all the time. Sometimes as females, if we don't go through that stage, we get to where we're really dependent on other people, and as we get older it turns into being really dependent on maybe men sometimes, and that's why that stage is extremely important, because they learn how to have independence and be okay with themselves not needing another person. How this affects the children of teen mothers: when a teen mom becomes pregnant, it isn't only a problem for her, but it's also a problem for the child, and they have a lot of health problems as they go along. Maybe the baby could be born early or have a lot of sickness. And they also usually begin contact with child welfare because a lot of these teens aren't working, so they have to be able to provide for their child. And sometimes doing the things that they need to provide causes them to break the law, and they get into contact with the correction system. And they even drop out of high school because they can't usually handle school and being a mom, which leads to lower educational performance. Now, some of these girls already had lower educational performance and didn't really have an interest in school, so that's what kind of snowballed and caused them to seek out other activities. And they usually do, the children and the mothers score lower on standardized tests due to the low education performance. Now, there was a New York teen pregnancy sample, which I thought was really interesting. I was kind of surprised by the numbers. But it was done in Bronx, New York, and 112.9 pregnancies of 1,000 teens 15 to 19 years old. And 73% of students were eligible for free lunches, and only 20 to 30% did graduate in 4 years. And I thought that was kind of a really small number, that only 1.5% of students were college ready. And the median income is $17,770, which that alone seems like it would put them people into poverty. I just thought that median income was really low, especially being in New York where it seems like the cost of living is very high. So I could really see where there would be a lot of poverty and higher pregnancy rates. Even though the unemployment rate in 2010 was only 17%, and they were trying to make good effort at making contraception available, they still had these really high pregnancy rates, which floored me when I read the study. Two-thirds of unmarried mothers are usually already poor and living in poverty before they become pregnant. Teen moms with low educational outcomes do have less employment opportunities later in life due to more and more employment places requiring people to have an education. It's just where society is going today. And they're usually less likely to go to college or achieve higher paying jobs. And some of that is just because they think that they cannot do that because they have a child and don't really seek out any kind of information to learn and see what resources are available to them. Teen fathers are also usually living in poverty, but 20% of them do sometimes marry the teen mother, and then they have to pay child support, which then helps out the mother. A lot of people ask, why does poverty cause teen pregnancy? Well, some of that is because they already don't have any economic prospects, or it's the cultural norm, like within the family. That's what other people have done, so it kind of seems like it's the thing to do. It's often a cycle. Their mother was a teen mom, maybe their grandmother was a teen mom, or they see it a lot, so it kind of makes it okay. That's what they're used to. They don't understand that that's maybe not how it's done. And we also live in a society of inequality, and low perception of success is kind of leading these teens to make poor decisions because they feel like they can never achieve them. And teens living in poverty do more likely carry their babies to term, unlike the ones in a higher status, which I kind of thought was interesting but understandable, because people who are of a higher status are more about the higher status and how things look rather than doing what's right. So I really thought that was interesting. Even though they had to live maybe on welfare, or they shouldn't have done what they did, they still carried the baby to full term and thought that was important. As counselors, ways that we can help, there are many different ways that we can help these young people. Of course, prevention is the best way, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And when we work with these people, we want to help them make positive decisions. We want to make sure that their choices are well thought out, like they play the tape all the way through, and it's realistic and something that they can achieve. And it's something that can be done regularly over time. And just linking them up with resources and support, because they may not get it from their family, so they may need help within the community to get that support. And help them seek proper health care if they come to us and tell us that they're pregnant, so that they can have a healthy baby. We want to make sure that all possibilities are available to them if there's any. And just communicate with them, educate them on reproduction and how to protect themselves. And as a society, being able to help single families, because there were so many single families in all these studies, and just help them learn how to have the support they need to be a single family. I think the earned income tax credit was a good thing, a good thing to help them, and maybe educate the public overall on what this is and what it means. We also could help the individual kind of build their skills, work with them in what healthy relationships are like, what good connections mean, and show them empathy in finding their female identity and help them change their views of maybe what it was like as a child for them, and show them kind of more positive ways that we as female can have our own identity rather than what maybe they used to have as an identity. And then this way, even though we may not have been able to prevent the first pregnancy, but possibly keep them from having the second pregnancy, like so many things kind of pointed to, was if they have one pregnancy at that age, they'll have a second child by the age of 20. And if nothing else, we can at least help them make sure they have all the information that they need to stop this cycle and create change in their lives. Thank you.